Hi, it's V with Crafting Daily Dose, and today I'm excited to show you a Miura fold card. So this is a card that's got a belly band that you remove, and then it opens up in a dramatic way with these panels that pop up. You've got room to write your message here, and then lots of space to add any decorations that you may want. For these, I'm using the He's the Man Designer Series paper. And I'm going to walk you through the creation of this version over here. I was inspired to make these by Sharon Lim, and I've got a link to her video down in the description box. To make the basic Miura fold card, you're going to need a card base that is 10.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and it's been scored at 3.5 inches and at 7 inches. We're going to make some additional score lines here, but we'll do that together. You'll need at least 2 pieces of designer series paper. Each one is 3¼ inches across by 5¼ inches in height, and then a piece of basic white cardstock for the message panel, and it's the same size, 3¼ inches by 5¼ inches. Now we also need a belly band, and this is 8½ inches across by 1 inch in height, and it's been scored at 2 inches and at 5¾ inch. Then you'll need something to decorate the belly band, and here I'm using a die cut from the All That Dies in Sahara Sand, and then one of the die cuts from the designer series paper. On that card base, go ahead and fold along the score lines if you haven't already, because that's going to make them a lot easier to see. On the left one, we're going to take a ruler and mark it at 2 inches from the top. And then on the right hand side, we're going to mark it at 2 inches from the bottom. Now you'll need something to score with. Here I'm using the stylus from my scoring board, but there's also a stylus tip that comes with the Take Your Pick tool, or you can use the end of your bone folder. So what I'll do is I'll make a score line from the top left corner down to that mark that I made, that's 2 inches from the top. Next, I'll go from that mark to the top of the next score line. Now I'll move to the bottom. I'm going to score from the bottom of this score line to that mark on the second score line. And then finally from the mark down to the bottom right corner. Now that we've made the score lines, we'll go ahead and fold them. So this one is going to fold towards the back. So I'm just using my hands here to gently guide the paper up until that score line, and then I'm going to press down on this side. Be patient with it. And now on this one, I want it to come up towards me, so I'm going to guide the score lines that way. I'm pulling up with my left hand and pressing down on the other side with my right hand. And here's what that fold looks like. Next, we need to trim down the decorative panels for our card. This is the designer series paper that I want to go on the front of the card, and for that I'm going to mark it down at 1 7/8 of an inch from the top along the right hand side. This is going to be my message panel that goes in the middle of the card, and on this one I'm marking at 1 7/8 of an inch down from the top on the left hand side, and then 1 7/8 of an inch from the bottom along the right hand side. And then last piece, this is going to go on the back panel. And here I've marked it at 1 7/8 of an inch from the bottom along the left hand side. I'll take each of these and put them in my trimmer to trim them down. So on my front piece, I'm trimming from the top left-hand corner down to my mark. I'm lining it up so that the corner that I want and the mark that I want are both along this trimmer track. On this middle part, I'm going to go from my mark on the left to this top right corner. And then from this mark on the right to this bottom left corner. And then finally on this back piece, I'm going from the mark here down to the bottom right corner. Once your pieces have been cut, you can go ahead and start arranging them on your card. Now, I laid them out just according to the way that we had cut them, but I have a couple of tips for you. If it looks like that your little triangles are a little bit too large for their space, just trim off 1/8 of an inch from the short side. What I do is I just trim off an extra 1/8 of an inch from the shortest side. I'm going to take this long side here and put it up at the top of my trimmer. And I will put this at the 1/8 inch mark. So 1/16 is the edge of this brown space, and then this first tick mark that you see right here is 1/8. So I'll go ahead and put this at 1/8 and trim. Now I'm actually going to start my cut in the middle of the piece of paper so that I'm not pushing up against this edge and meeting too much resistance. That's just something you can do if you're trying to trim a very small sliver. So this is what my piece looks like afterwards. And again, I think you'll find that it fits better into that space if you've done a little bit of additional trimming. So that's my first tip. My other tip is that you might want to switch these triangles around a little bit so that you just have a little bit more contrast. And depending on whether your papers are directional or not, you could even flip them upside down. So for example, this piece could potentially go here because it doesn't really matter if it's right side up or upside down. Or you can flip it over to the back so that you can use the contrasting pattern from there, in which case it would fit either here or here. So decide how you want your triangles to go. Now you may have noticed in my other card that I actually pulled in some additional designer series paper just so that I can have more contrast. If you would like to do that as well, then get another piece of designer series paper that is 3 1/4 inches across by 1 7/8 of an inch in height. And then you're going to cut it corner to corner. This one is not directional, so it doesn't really matter whether I'm making a cut this way or that way, but depending on where you intend these pieces to be, take a look and figure out which direction the cut needs to go. So for example, if I wanted to trade out and replace this piece, I would want to make my cut this way. Now, even for these pieces, again, it still fits better if you then go back and take the individual pieces and trim off an extra 1/8 of an inch from that short side. You could even do 2 of these so that you get more contrasting triangles. Now, once you have all the pieces that you'd like, make sure that you erase any marks that are visible, add any stamping that you want to, and then glue the pieces down. Here's my card with the stamping done, and then the panels have all been glued down. It closes like this, and now I just need to have that belly band so that the card will stay closed. So here's that strip of cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and fold it along those score lines. And you're going to notice that one flap is shorter than the other. The one that's shorter should go on top because that's going to end up right about in the middle. I'm just going to double check and make sure that my belly band fits properly. I'm wrapping it around. There should be some room on either side so that it will slip on and off easily, and it seems to be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the pieces down. Again, the shorter flap is going to go on top. So I'm going to put this longer flap at the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and put glue right at that edge on the top surface. And then on the shorter flap, I'm going to put glue along the edge, but on the underside. I'll put the longer flap down first and then the shorter flap down on top of it. And I've got a little scrap of paper here that I'm just going to put underneath there so that if any glue oozes out, it won't stick to the other side of the belly band. Now that my band is all together, I'm going to test it one more time. Okay, that looks good. And now I'm going to cover up that seam with some decoration. So that's where I'm bringing these pieces in. And then I'll just add some of those rustic metallic dots. There's our finished card. We remove the belly band and we get that awesome effect. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this dose of creativity. If you get a chance to try out this fold, I would love to see it. So feel free to share it in the Facebook group or tag me if you're sharing elsewhere. You can find my links in the description box. I hope to see you again next time, and until then, have a great day.